Hello. So today I'm going to do a quick catch up on what I've been reading. I do have a bit of an update on my current reads, and then I have a one single book to haul. So not too big of a haul. But then I have moved on to starting a new book, and it's one I think a lot of you will know. I'll let you guess. But to get started, I am going to talk about the series that I have recently finished and my thoughts and opinions. So I recently, I think last week sometime, late last week, finished The Golden Enclaves. And this is the final book in the Scholomance trilogy by Naomi Novik. So yeah, I have finished the final book. These are the Fairy Loot editions that I showed in my last video. So I won't go over it again, but if you're curious to see what they look like, I do kind of go more in detail with them in that one. But to do a quick catch up, I gave the first book in the series, which is called Deadly Education, I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really fun. I loved our 2 main characters. Basically, we follow a girl named Galadriel who's in this deadly school that tries to kill the students. And she's kind of been like cursed or like prophesized to be like this evil sorceress. But she's truly deep down like a good person. And that causes her lots of strife. So we follow her as she begrudgingly befriends this boy named Orion, who's like this hero type. And they don't have a lot in common at first, but their relationship grows and it's very cute. But to fast forward, the second book I gave 3 stars. So I didn't like it as much as the first book. I thought the pacing dragged. I thought there was sometimes too many inner monologue scenes, and the world building wasn't very firm. It didn't feel very fleshed out at all times. But I still loved the main characters, so, you know, I was pulling through for Galadriel and Orion. And then we get to this third book. So I did give this 2 stars. I think this is the lowest I've rated a book on here that I've talked about. I do give occasional low reviews. It's not just all 4 stars and happiness over here, but yeah, I gave this 2 stars. So for the first 2 books, we're mainly set in the school, but that's not the case with this third book, and I thought that caused a lot of problems for me in this final book. Basically, the strength of the series for me was the school was really interesting, and I loved the dynamic between Galadriel and Orion, because they kind of had this like push-pull kind of unique dynamic that I haven't read a lot in books, but in this book they're apart for like the majority of the book. I won't give any spoilers or anything, like any details, but they're apart for like most of the book, and because of that we get introduced to a lot of new characters and new plot lines that were just not very interesting to me, to be frank. Again, the setting sort of shifts in this one, and I just did not. I went from caring for the sake of the two main characters to like not caring at all. Not only did Galadriel in this book not feel as interesting, but like none of the characters really felt like themselves. It's like when they were moved to a different setting that their personalities kind of fell apart a little bit. So yeah, didn't really like this third book at all. I kind of skim read a bunch of it. And what else can I say? Oh, there was like a cheating, sort of. It's kind of a weird scenario because her and Orion their relationship is hard to define. A situationship, you might call it. But there was a weird aspect of cheating in this book that also just felt so out of character. Like the decisions the characters made in this book felt very unlike themselves, is I guess what I'll say. So I won't dwell on it too long, but yeah, this was quite a disappointment, especially because like I'd read the first two. It just kind of sucks to end a series on such a low note. I did have a couple of copies of this series, and I've gotten rid of all of them except for these editions just because they're very pretty, and I did enjoy the first two books. So for now they stay, but yeah, did not stick the landing in my opinion. Very sad. So would I recommend them? I'd almost recommend you just read the first book, but like that doesn't sound very intriguing because like then you don't know about a bunch of the rest of the story, so I don't even know if I can recommend that. But yeah, sad, bit of a disappointment, especially because I love the other two books I've read by Naomi Novik, so yeah, sad. So in the middle here, I'm just going to show you the book that I hauled because I kind of want to end on what I'm currently reading. And the one book that I hauled is The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer. This is a hardback. It just released, I think, this summer. I'm not exactly sure when, but this is another book recommendation that I got from Reagan at Peruse Project. I feel like all I do is recommend her channel, but she's awesome and we share tastes. So basically, The Lost Story is a sort of, not a Narnia retelling, but has similar story elements to Narnia. It's about two boys that I believe go missing. Let me check real quick. Yeah, it says, inspired by C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia, this wild and wondrous novel is a fairy tale for grown-ups who still knock on the back of wardrobes, just in case. It says, yeah, as boys, best friends Jeremy Cox and Rafi Howell went missing in a vast West Virginia state forest, only to mysteriously reappear 6 months later with no explanation for where they'd gone or how they'd survived. 15 years after their miraculous homecoming, Rafi is a reclusive artist who still bears scars inside and out, but has no memory of what happened during those months. Meanwhile, Jeremy has become a famed missing persons investigator. With his uncanny abilities, he is the one person who can help vet tech Emily Wendell find her sister, who has vanished in the very same forest as Rafi and Jeremy. Jeremy alone knows the fantastical truth, though while the rest of the world was searching for them, the two missing boys were in a magical realm filled with impossible beauty and terrible danger. He believes it is there that they will find Emily's sister. But for his own inscrutable reasons, Jeremy has kept Rafi in the dark since their return. However, the time for burying secrets comes to an end as the quest for Emily's sister begins. The former lost boys must confront their shared past, no matter how traumatic the memories. Alongside the headstrong Emily, Rafi and Jeremy must return to the enchanted world they called home for 6 months, for only then can they get back everything and everyone they've lost. Funnily enough, this is not the first Narnia retelling I've read. The other one is The Light Between Worlds by Laura Weymouth. I've actually talked about it, I think, in one of my favorites videos or something. But I really enjoy Narnia retellings because I think the aspect that I like to see explored is the trauma of going into a whole nother world and then being forced to return back to your regular world and being expected to operate like normal. The PTSD that I feel that would give you, especially if you were young or a kid when it happened. I just love the exploration of that. Laura Weymouth's book does that. Like I said, The Light Between Worlds, wonderfully. It talks a lot about depression and stuff. It's one of my very favorite standalones. And I think this book is going to do something similar, which is really cool. I also think it's queer from what I've heard, so that's pretty cool. And this is an adult novel, so it's kind of cool that I have this young adult book about Narnia that I love, and now I'm going to get to read another sort of similar story, but in adult fiction. So it's also blurbed by V.E. Schwab on the back, Jodi Picoult, Tao Tai, Melissa Albert, and a couple other authors. So that's really cool. Very, very excited to read this. I can just kind of tell, again, I've talked about this before, but sometimes I can just tell when I'm really going to like a book. And as soon as I heard about this one, I was like, yes, this is probably going to be a new favorite. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the book that I am currently reading that I think a lot of you will recognize. And that book is Iron Flame. Obviously, this is the sequel to Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, which blew up a year ago, 2 years ago. Funny enough, I did get the special first printing edition. I didn't know it had blown up on TikTok or whatever, but I was just walking through Barnes & Noble and I saw the sprayed pages and I was like, ooh, dragons, pretty. I like dragons. I'll buy it. And then I literally took it home and then looked online and suddenly all I saw were like Fourth Wing posts, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that this was such a big deal. I didn't know it was such a big thing. So yeah. So I'll give you like my feelings about this series, because I know it's very like divisive, kind of. I don't know if divisive is the right term, but I do feel like it's you love it rabidly, you absolutely adore it, or you think it's trash. It's like, at least that's the opinions that I see online. I'm sure they're a lot more nuanced if you like asked reader to reader, but let me first start in the beginning. Fourth Wing. Also, by the way, these are dust jackets that I got from an artist on Instagram. If they're still available, I'll link them in my description in case you're interested. I just know I always love to like know where people get like special art prints and dust jackets and stuff, so I see you if you're like that as well, so hopefully I'll remember to link it. But yeah, so this is my first copy that I got, that I picked up from a random Barnes & Noble, not knowing what I was finding. And I did fly through this book. I really enjoyed it while I was reading it. Like, to me, Fourth Wing kind of fills the void of like Divergent, except for it's new adult and not young adult. And I definitely understand why it's so popular. It's very, very addictive. Like I was hooked immediately. And I also think it's a really good series for people who are either new to fantasy or maybe don't read a lot of fantasy and just want like romance but in like a fantasy setting. I feel like this is really good for that. And weirdly, like, it's not a huge book, but they really packed a lot of story in this amount of pages. Like, I was impressed by how much like territory we crossed. Yeah, I was impressed by how much like story we got through with this. But so I'm not going to explain the plot because I feel like most people know it, and I think Goodreads would do it better than I could. But the reason I kind of mentioned Divergent is because like I wouldn't call Divergent like the pinnacle of dystopian or fantasy, or wherever you would categorize it, but it was very fun. I'm talking about the first book. I have not read the second or third. And this was very similar to me. So yeah, I was engaged. I did like the story. It's definitely not epic fantasy. Like, that's what I think going in. You cannot expect like a serious epic fantasy, because that's not what this is at all. My main complaints about this book was the dialogue and the romantic scenes. Like, when I say it's like romance, like just in a fantasy setting, I really mean it, in that like the dialogue sometimes felt pulled straight out of an adult romance book, and it took me completely out of the fantasy setting. I was like, why are we talking like this in like a dragon college? I don't know. Just like some parts were so serious, like there's death and stuff happening all around them, but then like the next minute it'd just be like smutty romance talk, and I'm like, these are two things that are very different, and it pulled me out of the world totally. So yeah, my main gripes were with the romance, but I did like the characters and I liked the story. So yeah, that is in a short form, my relationship with this book. Also, the dragons in this book I did like, but I also thought that their dialogue was kind of not juvenile per se, but sort of. Like, not as serious as I was expecting from old, powerful dragons, you know? It's don't go expecting, again, Game of Thrones dragons. That's not these dragons. But I did enjoy them. Like, I liked their characters, so you just have to go in knowing what to expect, in my opinion. But I do think it was really engaging. The writing was really engaging. The plot was quick, but like not too quick. So I understand why it's so popular. I do think it's like a good intro to fantasy, or like fantasy light, if that's what you're going for. So yes, again, sorry. It's my relationship with Fourth Wing. And so I read that early last year, a year ago. My sense of time has vanished and I don't remember when that book came out, but fairly early on because I found the first edition in stores, so if that tells you anything. I am now reading Iron Flame. This is a bit of a chunkier book. I am this far in. They did not do a stenciled sprayed edge for this first edition, which I found interesting, but I think they are for the next book. What do I know about marketing? But once again, I do find this still has that same like addictive quality to it, so I'm enjoying myself. And like after reading the Scholomance trilogy that ended with a 2-star rating, I kind of wanted something that I knew wouldn't bore me and that I would have like a fun time reading. And this is definitely fitting the bill, you know, it's doing that for me. So I actually think this book is maybe better better constructed than the first book. At least the pacing in terms of the relationships, both the friendships and the core romance, I feel like is better paced in this book than the first book. I think I've seen some people complain that like this book was slow and they didn't like it as much, but I think it's a good thing. I think the pacing is a lot more realistic. So yeah, this is still not like Brandon Sanderson. Like you're not gonna find, there's no Robin Hobb in here, but like it's entertaining. And I do think, even though I'm only like, what, a third, not even, of the way through the book, I do think this is going to be better than the first one, maybe. Again, the first one was entertaining, but I have hopes that maybe this one will be even better. Maybe I'm reading with rose-colored glasses, but I'm an optimistic person at heart, so. Also, if you like this series, I don't ever want to shame you for liking it. I don't like that mentality when it comes to like judging other readers. Like everyone's different. Everyone's gonna like different things, so no judgment or hate here. Again, if you didn't like the series, I think that's also valid. So I will say I just remembered something. Another point docked from the first book for me was the ending. So if you've read the ending, I won't spoil it. If you've read the ending of the first book, Fourth Wing, you'll know it ends on a cliffhanger. And it's not like the concept of the cliffhanger was not bad, but like the way it was presented was so corny to me, just to me. Like I read it and I was like, ugh. It totally took me out of the moment. I was like, that is a Disney Channel line that you've just served me, and I don't appreciate it. Again, I as I'm reading the second book, the dialogue is not bothering me as much as it did in the first book. So I'm hoping that maybe some of it the author has like cleared up a little bit. I know the author has previously written just like contemporary romance, and I do think that shows in the first book. Like, you can definitely tell. So I'm hoping as she continues in this series, she kind of gets her fantasy footing, so to speak. That's my hope. So for now, I'm continuing on. And again, I'm like just a little bit of the way through so far. It's interesting. I know why the first book was called Fourth Wing, but I don't yet know why this one is called Iron Flame. So I'm waiting to figure that out. So yeah, this is the book that I am currently reading. The back says, "Because love at its root is hope." And then just because I was kind of running out of books to tap on, I thought I'd show you the other editions of this book I did buy the Fairy Loot editions. So this is the first book. I did the reverse jacket, like with the art, because I think the normal cover is just on the front, so. This is the Fairy Loot art. This is, if you don't know, this is Violet. This is our main character, and this is Xaden, our main male love interest. And here are some dragons that are in the book. I feel like this art side of the jacket is very sticky. So yeah, this is the first book, obviously, and then the second book, Iron Flame. Here is the dust jacket for that one. Again, I am hoping that I do like this book more than the first one. It's a fun series if you know what you're getting into. But yeah, that is all I have to share in this video. Hopefully you found this interesting. Not sure if I've been like tapping as much. Iron Flame. This is backwards for me, so this is hard. Yeah. So thank you for watching. I hope you're good wherever you are. And I will see you in my next one. Thanks.